Hi, welcome to the Gemara on the bottom of Chav Hei Amud Aleph, following the last Mishnah. Tana Rabbanan, we learned in a Breita, Yesh Nikrin Mitargamin, V'yesh Nikrin V'lo Mitargamin, V'yesh Lo Nikrin V'lo Mitargamin, Elo Nikrin Mitargamin. So there are those, meaning there are those sections of the Torah which are read and translated. There are those which are read and not translated. There are those which are not read and not translated. And these are the ones that are both read and translated, which means we're going to have a list of cases that are read and translated. And in each case, as you'll see, there's a reason why you might have thought that they wouldn't be translated, but these are both read and translated. Balat Akan Nashva Siman, this is the acronym, the mnemonic for remembering those cases. Ma'aseh Bereshit Nikra Mitargam, the story of creation, Ma'aseh Bereshit, is both read and translated. Pshita, this is obvious. Mahu Detema, what is it that you would have thought? What is it that you would have said? Atu Lashule Malamala Umalamata. One might come to ask what is above and what is below. Umalifnim umalachor, and what comes after and what came before. In other words, the experience of reading Bereshit can raise all sorts of sort of metaphysical questions, really existential questions, and so you might have thought that was a reason not to read it, but in fact we do, or not to read and translate it, but in fact we both read and translate it. Kamash Malan. Therefore, it teaches us that we do. Ma'aseh Lot v'shnei bnotav, the story of Lot and his daughters, Nikra Mitargam, is read and translated. Fully understandable. Pshita, this is obvious. Mahu Detema, what would you have thought? Meaning, why would you have thought that we shouldn't translate it? Nichush lichvodo da Abraham. We should be concerned for the honor of Abraham. It doesn't look good that his nephew Lot did these things. Kamash Malan. Therefore, it comes to teach us, no, we do read it. Ma'aseh Tamar v'Yehuda Nikra Mitargam. The story of Tamar and Yehuda is both read and translated. Pshita, this is obvious. Mahu Detema, what is it that you would have said? Meaning, why would you have thought not to translate it? Lichosh l'chvodo de Yehuda. We should be concerned about the honor of Yehuda, right? That would be a reason not to read it. It doesn't look very good for Yehuda. Kamash Malan, shavchehu de odi. Therefore, this teaches us that it's actually a praise for Yehuda. That's why we read it. It's actually a praise for him because he admitted, meaning he confessed his sin. He does tshuva in the end, and therefore it's actually good for Yehuda to read the story. It's a kavod to him. Maaseh Egel HaRishon, Nikra Mitargam. The first story of the golden calf, meaning when we're told about the actual happening of it, that is both read and translated. Pshita, this is obvious. Mahu Detema, what is it that you would have thought? Lichush l'chvodan shel Yisrael. You might have thought we should be concerned about the honor of the Jewish people and therefore not read it. Kamash Malan, kol shekin denichalahu dehavelahu kapara. Therefore, it comes to teach us that all the more so, nichalahu, it's good for them, meaning it's good for the Jews that we read this story. Dehavelahu kapara, because it functions as an atonement, meaning it's good that it embarrasses Yisrael a little bit. That sort of functions as an atonement for the sin with Chet HaEgel. Klalotu brachot nikrinu mitargamin. Blessings, curses and blessings are read and translated. These are both read and translated. Pshita, this is obvious. Mahu Detema, what is it that you would have thought? Why would you have thought not to read and translate them? Nichush dilma faigada taihu tzibora. We should be concerned lest the mind or the spirit or the will of the congregation be weakened. And Rashi explains this. So it's way down here somewhere. Yichlosh da'atan kashishma'u shihu ne'enshin. Their minds will become weak, or their spirit will be weakened when they hear that they're going to be punished. Better that we should just get enjoyment of the world. Forget these mitzvot. Better that we should just enjoy the world as much as we want, since we're going to be punished in the end anyway. It might be sort of an overwhelming experience to hear about all the klalot that are possible. Kamash Malan. So therefore it teaches us that no, actually, we do read and translate that even though you might have thought it would be dangerous. As harot va'onshin, warnings and punishments, nikrinu u'targamin. We read them and we translate them. Pshita, this is obvious. Mahu detema, what would you have said? Why would you have thought not to read and translate them? Nichosh dilma atula ma'aved miyira. We should be concerned lest you think that, or lest the Jews come to serve out of fear. Meaning they'll come to serve only out of fear because you're just, they're worrying about all the punishments that could happen. So you might think you shouldn't read it, kamash malan, meaning therefore it comes to teach us that no, you should translate it. We're not worried about that. Ma'aseh Amnon v'Tamar nikra u'mitargem. The story of Amnon and Tamar should be both read and translated. The story, we mentioned this in the Mishnah, the story where Amnon rapes his half-sister Tamar is both read and translated. Maaseh Avshalom Nikra Mitargem, and the story of Avshalom rebelling against his father, that's also read and translated. So both of these cases are read and translated. Pshita, this is obvious. Mahu detema, what would you have thought? Why would you have thought not to translate it? Lichush likare de David. We should be concerned about the honor of David. Kamash malan. So it teaches us that no, we're not so concerned. We do read these, or we do translate these. Maaseh Pilegesh Begiva Nikra Mitargem. The story of Pilegesh Begiva, the prostitute who winds up getting cut up, that story is both read and translated. Pshita, this is obvious. Mahu detema, what is it that you might have thought? Lichush l'chvodo de Binyamin. We should be concerned about the kavod of Binyamin, in whose portion, under whose auspices this happened. So you might have thought we shouldn't read it for that reason. Kamash malan. Therefore we learn, no, we really do read it. Hoda et Yerushalayim et toavateha nikra mitargem. This pasuk, this section about recognizing all the bad parts of Jerusalem, all the bad things about Jerusalem at that time from Yechezkel, is both read and translated. Pshita, this is obvious. La'afuke midi Rabbi Eliezer. We're told this to exclude the opinion of Rabbi Eliezer, meaning to show that we don't, or this Breita doesn't hold like Rabbi Eliezer. Titania, we learned in a Breita, right? It was Rabbi Eliezer in our Mishnah thinks that you don't read this section at all. But no, we say we even read it and translate it. But here's another story about Rabbi Eliezer. Ma'aseh ba'adam echad she'ha koreh l'malam Rabbi Eliezer. There was a person who was reading above, in front of Rabbi Eliezer. Hoda et Yerushalayim et toavateha. He was reading this section. Amar lo, ad she'ata bodek b'toavot Yerushalayim, tzeu b'dok b'toavot imecha. Till you're going to be checking the disgusting things about Jerusalem, go out and check the disgusting things about in your mother's past. Bad kuach harav. So they actually did this. They actually checked. Umatzu bo shemetz psul, and they found in him a shemetz psul, some small amount of lack of validity, or some small amount of lack of kashrut. In other words, there was in fact something in this guy's family history that was bad. Someone had sex with someone where they weren't supposed to. Someone's a mamzer or something like that. And this is this whole story is just an expression of how extremely Rabbi Eliezer held this opinion. Sorry, this is all a Breita. So he held this opinion in a really extreme way, but our Breita that's listing all the cases that you can both read and translate disagrees and thinks that this verse, which is negative about Jerusalem, can be read. The elo nikrin v'lo mitargemin, and here are the cases that are read but not translated. And we have a siman here also, it's in parentheses, a mnemonic. Ma'aseh Reuven nikra v'lo mitargem. The story about Reuven, again, Reuven sleeping, the pasuk says that he had sex with his father's concubine. Of course, the rabbis interpret that differently, but that's what the pasuk says. So we read it, but we don't translate it. That's the case. Uma'aseh Rabbi Chanina ben Gamliel shehalach lekabul v'haya koreh chazan hakneset v'hi b'shchon Yisrael. So there's a story about Rabbi Chanina ben Gamliel who went to Kabul, and the chazan of the shul was reading this pasuk, Vayihi bishkon Yisrael. This pasuk, which talks about what Reuven did. I have the pasuk down here. Let's find Breshit Lamed Hey. Vayihi bishkon Yisrael be'eretz hahi, vayelech Reuven vayishkav et bilha pilegesh aviv, vayishma Yisrael, vayu bnei Yaakov shnei masar. So it happened while Israel was living in that land. Reuven went and slept with Bilhah, his father's Pilegesh, and his father Yisrael heard about it. And then it says there's a parsha break. That pei means there's a parsha break. And then it says Yaakov's sons were 12. So that's the pasuk that's being referred to. So that was being read in shul. And Rabbi Chanina va'amar lo l'meturgaman, Rabbi Chanina said to the meturgaman, al tetergem el acharon. Don't translate except the end, meaning only translate the end of the pasuk. And Rashi explains, because there is that parsha break that I showed you. So ela acharon, al tetergem el acharon, vayu bnei Yaakov shnei masar. Right, that part you can read, that Yaakov still had 12 sons. The pasuk has nifsak, the hafsek parsha, and that pasuk is divided by a parsha break. And therefore, that second part is called acharon, ki iluhu pasuk la'atzmo, as though it were a pasuk unto itself. So that part you can translate, but Rabbi Chanina says to the Metargem, don't translate the other part. B'shivchuhu chachamim, and the end of that story is b'shivchuhu chachamim. The rabbis praised him, meaning praised Rabbi Chanina for stopping the guy from translating that part of the pasuk. So it's a proof that we read it but we don't translate it. Maaseh egel hasheni nikra v'lo metargem. And the story of the second telling of the golden calf, when Aaron retells the story to Moshe, that we read but don't translate. Ize maaseh egel hasheni. What constitutes that story? The second telling of the egel hazahav. Min vayomer Moshe ad vayar Moshe. So it gives the psukim. You can look inside there, but it's Aaron's retelling of the story, and I think Rashi points out here. No, the Gemara is going to point out. We'll just read it in the Gemara. Tanya, we learn in the Breita. Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar Omer. Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar says, "La'olam yeheh adam zehir b'tshuvotav." A person should always be very careful in giving answers. Shemitoch tshuva shehishivo Aaron l'Moshe pakru hame'ararim. Because from the answer that Aaron gave to Moshe, a door was opened for those who would raise questions, or for those who would question God, meaning, and it's going to explain why. Because Aaron says, "I threw it into the fire, and this calf came out," which makes it sound like there was something magical going on there, something supernatural. And this is the perfect opening for those who would say that there is a power besides God. Okay, going back to our list, Birkat Kohanim nigrin v'lo metargemin. Birkat Kohanim is read and not translated. My taima, what's the reason? Mishum dichsiv, because it says Yisa. The word Yisa, okay, Rashi will explain. This word Yisa means to show favor to, but there's a way in which it implies show favor sort of inappropriately, meaning when it's not deserved. I'm looking to see if I have the Rashi down here. There's a lot of Rashis on this section, so I'm not finding it right now. But that's what Rashi says, that finding favor is usually something which we associate as being, sort of, you don't deserve it, but you're favored anyway. And that's now, here we go. Mishum Yisa. Panim. We shouldn't say that God's just like favoring them, like showing them favor sort of for no reason. And people who hear the word Yisa, they won't know that the Jews actually deserve to have God show favor to them. As is said in Brachot, Lo kedaihem Yisrael aseh panim. Aren't the Jewish people worthy of my showing favor to them? This is God speaking. Ani amarti, I, God, said, ve'achalta v'savato ve'rachta. You eat, and you feel full, and then you bless. V'hen machmirin al etzman. And they, the Jewish people, are strict on themselves, ad kazayat ad kebetza, so that even if they eat just the amount of an olive or the amount of an egg, they are stringent on themselves and make an after bracha. In other words, God says, I set this standard. If you're full, then you have to bless. But we actually bless even if we're not full, even if we've just eaten this relatively small amount of food. And so it's a famous idea in the Gemara Brachot. We actually deserve favor from God, but people won't realize that if they hear this word Yisa. So we don't read or translate that according to this list. Ma'aseh David va'Amnon lo nikrin v'lo mitargemin. The story of David and Amnon, meaning Amnon and Tamar, the rape, is read and not translated. Well, is not read and not translated. But didn't we say that the story of Amnon and Tamar is read and is translated? Wasn't it on the other list? Lo kasha. It's not a contradiction. Hadichtiv Amnon ben David, hadichtiv Amnon stama. So this, meaning the times when it's restricted, is when it says Amnon son of David. We don't read or translate those parts, but the parts that we do, that we can read and translate, are the parts where it just says Amnon, meaning we're okay with the story, but we're just cautious about the association with David. Tana Rabbanan, we learned in a Breita, Kol HaMikra'ot HaKtuvin b'Torah l'Gnai, Korinotan l'Shvach. All of the words in the Torah which are written in a bad way, in a negative way, we read them in a positive way. This is like a kriyu ktiv kind of thing. There are words which are written a certain way in the Torah, but we don't think they're not written in a nice way, or they're written in an inappropriate way somehow, so we read them differently. Kagon, like the case of Yishalgena Yishkavena. So this is a case where the word that's actually written is Yishalgena, which is apparently like a nasty way to say having sex with someone, like not a good way to talk about it. So we say Yishkavena. Ba'afulim b'tachorim. This is actually just ba'afulim is the pasuk. So another case where we have a word ba'afulim or ba'polim is a word that refers to a body part. Apparently, they both refer to the anus, but tachorim is less explicit. It's like a more appropriate way of saying that word. So this is still part of the Breita. Charyonim davyonim. Again, the word in the Torah apparently is charyonim, and the word we replace it with is davyonim. And again, these are both words that apparently mean dung or excrement, but one is a nicer word than the other. One is more euphemistic. And then we have this pasuk, which says, so that's the pasuk, and we read it as to eat their basically excrement and to drink their urine. And that's considered to be a nicer way of saying it. I'm not really sure what the original way of saying it was exactly, but apparently the other one was even worse. So this is the nicer way. We read it in the nicer way. Again, continuing in this Breita. Lemachra'ot lemotzaot. And we change lemachra'ot to lemotzaot. So again, you can look up all these psukim, and I have them all on the sheet. But this is again just changing this word from the way that it's written, because they're different kinds of bathroom words. Motzaot is a more euphemistic term for excrement. Rabbi Yeshua ben Karcha Omer. Rabbi Yeshua ben Karcha says, "Lemechra'ot kishman, lemechra'ot kishman, mipnei shehu gnai la'avodat kochavim." You can actually say the word mochra'ot or machra'ot. You can actually read that as it's written. That one, he says, we don't change, because that one is about idol worshippers, and so it's just a way of saying something negative about idol worshippers, so that's fine. Right? In that case, we don't have to make the language better. Amar Rav Nachman comments on this and says, Kol nuta asira, all forms of mockery are prohibited. bar melitznuta devodat kochavim, except for mockery of avodat kochavim to sharia, because that you're allowed to do as much as you want. It's permitted. Sharia is permitted. Dichtiv, as it says in the pasuk, kara kol karas nevo. Sorry, this is the pasuk. Which is Bel, which is a god, like an idol god, bends its knees or squats down, and Nevo, which is another god, splashes. Uktiv, and it also says in this next verse, Karso kra'o yachdav lo yachlu malet masav gomer. So still talking about the idols, they splash, and they bend down together, they squat down together, and they can't deliver the burden. So these psukim apparently imply mockery of the idols, meaning the idea is that the Tanakh itself is ridiculing the idols, and Rashi explains that there's bathroom humor here, this squatting, and they can't deliver the burden. It's like they can't go to the bathroom normally. They're trying to get feces out and they can't. It's all bathroom humor. And so from this pasuk, which seems to be making fun of the idols, Rav Nachman learns that you're allowed to make fun of idol worship as much as you want. Rabbi Yanai Amar, Mahacha, he has a different source for this idea that you're allowed to make fun of idol worship. Le'eglot Beit Aven Yagru Shechan Shomron. For the because of the cows or the calves of Beit Aven, the people who live in Shomron will be afraid, will be scared. A pasuk from Hosea. Because the people mourn about it, and it's I should really highlight all of this, and but the priests of that religion are happy about it. Al kvodo ki gala mimenu, for its glory that left it. So this is about on the face of it, it's really just about idol worship, and the people are going to mourn, but the priests are going to rejoice. But again, this is taken as more bathroom humor. Ki gilami manu is the end of the pasuk. Al tikri kvodo ela kvedo. Don't read this as kvodo, their honor, but rather kvedo, which Rashi again here interprets as feces. So again, making fun of idols for not being able to go to the bathroom properly, and it's more bathroom humor about idols. Amar Rav Huna bar Manoach mishmei derav Acha berei derav Ika. Shari leila bar Yisrael meimar leila avodat kochavim shak leila avodat kochavim ve'anche b'shin tav shelo. It is permitted for the son of a Jew, for a Jewish person, to tell an idolater, take your avodat kochavim and stick it in your shin tav. And Rashi tells us that your shin tav is essentially, it's shin tav form the word sheit, which means buttocks. So you can come up with the appropriate idiomatic expression for that. Amar of Ashi. Now, final statement, finishing up the parak by Rav Ashi. Haiman dasani shomaine sharile libzuye begimel v'shin. One whose reputation or name is denigrated, you're allowed to embarrass him with gimel and shin. And Rashi again explains that gimel and shin here means like son of a prostitute, or son of an adulteress, son of a prostitute, at the point at which we have someone whose reputation is that bad, which Rashi explains means someone who's supposed to be an adulterer. Once you have someone who's accused of being an adulterer, suspected of being an adulterer, you're allowed to call him son of a prostitute, basically. And last statement, Haiman de Shapir Shemane Shari Lishfuche. But if you hear about someone whose name is great, Shapir Shemane, his reputation is terrific, then it's permitted to praise him, to praise that person. Uman Teshapre Yanuchul Brachot al Rosho. And the one who praises him, blessings should rest on his head. That is the end of the parak. We will stop here.